guys, and welcome to the Unattached podcast, episode number 3. This feels so good. I'm like in a groove now. I recorded the first one and then took this, I don't even know, 5-month hiatus. And then the longer I waited, the more of a mountain it became. You know what I'm talking about, right? You have this thing that you really, really want to do, and it's so important for you. The longer you wait, the bigger deal it becomes. And then the shame kicks in and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that thing. And then somehow reaching to do the thing feels impossible. So that's what happened. Anyways, last week made an incredible episode. At least it felt incredible because I shared my story with you guys. And there's something very cathartic about being extra raw and vulnerable and getting into my life story. It's interesting because my whole healing journey in terms of going from fearful avoidant to secure in big part was made possible because I started sharing vulnerably on TikTok. And before that point, I was kind of navigating all of these triggers alone. So having these intense reactions and getting into cycles of reactivity, fear, pulling away, turning on myself, being upset with myself for being that way, and then internalizing this deep shame and living with it all by myself. So yeah, had no idea that other people experienced what I was going through and didn't feel safe enough to share it because the shame keeps you locked up in a corner with yourself. And the more shame you feel, the less you want to share, which ends up just like spiraling and making it worse. So yeah, coming out on TikTok and talking about my experience is what brought me to all of you guys and made me realize that I'm not so weird after all. What I was going through was a common experience. And what that means is that there is a beautiful solution at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, sharing my story with you guys last week felt kind of like that. I found in my life that the more open I can be about my things, the less I feel shame. And shame has really been a sticky state for me. And I know that that's the case for a lot of us because it makes us turn on ourselves and feel like there is something fundamentally terribly wrong. And then you just curl up and go within that darkness. And yeah, it's just a sad and difficult place to be. So all of that being said, sharing and opening up is a gift. And I thank you guys for being here with me because you have helped me with my healing tremendously. So episode 3, we're going to get into the cycle of self-abandonment today. And this is a huge subject for me. It's the subject of my interest. This is the thing that I literally love the most because it's so psychological, it's so subconscious, and it is this crazy self-fulfilling prophecy that a lot of us get caught in, and it's hard to get out of because when you're in it, you just get consumed by your fears and they take over. And fear is a very intelligent survival mode. It's what keeps us safe. So there's a reason that all of this keeps happening. And I'm so excited to debunk it here with you guys because learning about this stuff has dramatically changed my life as well. I was someone who self-abandoned a lot. And I had no idea that I was doing it. So discovering what self-abandonment even means was life-changing for me. So let's break this down, shall we? Self-abandonment is something that we develop as a means of survival. Everything that we do on a subconscious level is for the means of survival. Our system, we're animals, technically, if you think about it. Our system is designed so that we survive, we make it. And so when we go through difficulties, a lot of us, it's when we grow up. That's when our nervous system is so delicate, and we are so delicate. Like, you're a little bean, okay? You're helpless. You can't feed yourself on your own. You can't walk. You're crying. You know, you're shitting in a diaper. Let's be honest. You can't do anything. You're basically helpless. You're dependent on other people for your survival. And that is such a vulnerable place to be. So, unfortunately, not everyone and most people don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to give and nurture a little being perfectly, because humans are fundamentally humans. We're going through so much. A lot of this like awareness stuff is only popping up now. So for a lot of us, our parents, especially at the time when they had us at age, 20 to 30, back then had no freaking idea how to regulate their nervous system. That wasn't a conversation. They didn't have internet, so at that time, especially, they were not regulating themselves. And then the children got the brunt of that. So it's very normal that a lot of us have trauma. Like we all do. I've not met one person that has no trauma at all. So it's something that brings us all together. Going back to the first thing I said here is like, when you start sharing openly about your experience, what you'll find is that most people will go, oh yeah, I've felt that way too. And all of a sudden you realize that you're not so alone. So yes, we're young, we're vulnerable, and we're relying on people for our survival. But what happens is when they're consumed with their own stuff and they can't be there for us in the way that we need, we end up internalizing that and turning that onto ourselves. And there's a really, like, literally everything I'm going to talk about here points back to the most intelligent system of all time, AKA you, your subconscious, and your nervous system. We turn it on to ourselves because imagine this. If we at that age accepted that our parent couldn't be there for us in the way that we needed, and we turned against our parent, we'd be turning against the only people or person that is designed to keep us safe. So we need to do everything we can, again, super subconsciously, to make sure that that relationship stays intact, because without them, we're literally screwed, right? So what we're going to do instead is flip it in onto ourselves. And what that ends up looking like is, oh, okay, well, they can't be here for me because I'm not good enough. And that way, when you turn it in on yourself, at least that relationship is intact and there is a semblance of safety, sort of. But in that process, we've now developed this really insecure attachment to our own selves because we've turned on ourselves and we've abandoned ourselves in order to get that love externally and that safety externally. Something's wrong with me. Let me push parts of myself away in order to salvage whatever I can so that I survive. Like, how cool is that? It literally, it boggles my mind how awesome it is. And little side note, when I was self-abandoning, didn't know what I was doing, in all kinds of spirals, I was turning on myself all the time. Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why do I do this? And now that I've learned about the nervous system, the subconscious, and survival and why this happens, it has completely shifted the way that I view my mechanisms, my body, my reactions. All of it is so freaking intelligent. Like, if your system is sending you into fight or flight, it's because a part of you developed at some time that required you to go into that state in order to get you here. Like, it's the only reason you're here. And I know it's easy to turn on those reactions and be like, I hate this part of myself. I hate that I feel that way. But that very perspective, that hate turned inward, only perpetuates the same self-abandonment that happened at the time of the trauma where you had to turn on yourself. You see how that happens? We actually perpetuate self-abandonment by continuing to turn on ourselves and looking outward for somebody else to save us. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Oh my God, there are going to be so many side adventures here because my brain is filled with so much information. And like, I get so excited about this topic. I'm literally sweating from my upper lip. That's how excited I am. That is how you know. Okay, so we're young. We need to self-abandon in order to maintain a sense of safety within our situation. And this can happen in a multitude of ways. Like even, let's say you're bullied and people make fun of the fact that you're a certain way. And that's just a part of your character. Naturally, as a child, that part came out to play and you were shamed for that. So now it's like, okay, in order for me to be a part of the clan, which is also a means of survival, if you think back to like animals, you need to be part of the group, right? Or else you're going to get killed or something. So in order for me to be accepted by the clan, I need to turn on this part of myself that is going to get me extricated from the group because that part of me now is a problem. So I'm going to shun that part away. Goodbye. You're not good for me anymore. And I'm going to abandon that part to be accepted by people outside of myself. So that's the whole process of self-abandonment. And that's the thing that happens slowly over time throughout our lives in a multitude of ways. So that's a really interesting place to look in terms of your own healing. Where have I self-abandoned? Could have been one incident, could have been many. And these are the little clues as to what you needed to do in order to adapt and survive. And what parts of you are in the shadows that you maybe have turned on, developed shame around, and those parts that we're repressing. And that's what's stopping us from embodying our wholeness, is that there are parts that are locked in the shadows that we're too afraid to look at, because looking at those parts means facing the fear of abandonment, of being left out and rejected and bullied, or whatever your story is. And to then revisit that wound means to open up that fear. And so it's really interesting. Your system, because it's designed to make you survive, doesn't actually want you to look at those wounds, to look at that pain, because it believes that if you go back there, you will be abandoned, you will be rejected, you will not be liked. And therefore, it's unsafe to go back there. And what your system will do to prevent you from going back there, because it's like, we can't go back to that pain at all, we're going to avoid it at all costs, is anytime something triggers you or you start digging into it, you're going to start feeling big discomforts, anxieties, fear, and your system is going to do everything it can to have you turn away from it. And what that ends up doing is you end up living a life where you're being held back by those fears because you're not living to your fullest potential. Yet you're kind of blind to what's happening, because every time you go there, it's uncomfortable. So then you end up going back to your comfort zone. You're like, okay, well, I'm safe here. But are you really living to the fullest capacity? And the answer is no, when you have repressed parts of yourself and repressed fears. So yeah, this stuff pretty much governs everything. But we don't necessarily realize it because this is what we're used to. So back to the beginning. I got sidetracked, but hopefully it's all making sense. That's all I can hope for here. So you're a child, okay? And you're going through these difficult experiences, right? And they're scary. It's scary to feel unsafe. It's scary to feel rejected, to feel abandoned, to be afraid that your mom's not going to pick you up at the end of a piano lesson. Like, that's how I used to feel. I mentioned in the last episode, it's scary to feel so unsafe. These are big emotions that are pretty much unprocessable for a small child, let alone a big child, let alone an adult, right? Our parents didn't know how to process their emotions. We don't know how to process our own emotions until we learn. So as a child, there's absolutely no way you're going to process feelings of abandonment. There's no chance. But what's interesting is that we're born with the innate capacity to process emotion. Because if you're playing in kindergarten and some kid steals your ball, you're going to throw a fit, punch your fists around, and then 5 minutes later, you're going to be laughing and tossing the ball with them. That is the process of an energy and emotion coming through. You're expelling it, and then you're able to move on to the next thing. That's the normal process of processing an emotion. But when the emotion is like putting your survival into question, you bet that that's too much. So as a little kid, you have that massive emotion in your body, and it's like it takes a toll. It's like it's there, it's present over time. And after a certain amount of time, your system, again, wired for survival, says subconsciously, this is just not optimal. I can't live this way much longer. We need to figure out another way. So these big emotions are in the body. We feel them in the body. And at some point, the system goes, okay, abort mission. We're going to split off from the body because it's really not safe to be in there. I don't know what to do with these big emotions and sensations. It's way too much. Split off from the body. And we're going to travel up to the mind. And here we are going to make sure that we are safe. Here we're going to scan our environment. We're going to be hypervigilant. And we're going to make sure that anything that resembles that pain that's in the body, we're going to protect against it. Because we can never, ever let that happen again. So this is the birth of a very heady nation where we're all up in our heads. We're all up here. We're disembodied. We're overthinking. And not only that, like these, when we're up in the head, it's like we develop mechanisms to keep pushing forward. So let's say there's, you grow up in a family where money's scarce, okay? And there's always this impending doom that like, you're never going to have enough, right? You don't know if you're going to eat. That's a pretty crazy thing to live. It puts your survival into question. So then you grow up, go up to your mind, and now your whole mission is, okay, that's never going to happen again. And so you develop overachieving, never stop working, keep going, moving forward. And, a person like this can actually end up being super successful. So your mechanism can actually yield you a societally acceptable result. But it's all being driven by fear. Like the whole thing is you can't stop moving because if you stop, this fear will come up of, oh my God, what if everything collapses? What if I lose everything tomorrow? And so you wake up every day and you tirelessly push yourself to ensure that that thing never happens again. Okay, great. You have money. You have security, quote unquote. But do you feel secure inside? The answer is no, because all of this is being driven by fear. And that is never the right motivator. So, yeah. Let me take a little stretchy poo. So, that's one way that this manifests. Another way is the hypervigilance. And this comes out a lot in relationships. We have someone who's been abandoned, let's say, who's felt abandoned, who's been abandoned, whatever the experience is. And then there's this fear that it's going to happen again. And so some people develop anxious attachment. And whenever they're in a relationship, they are perceiving through the lens of that abandonment wound that they could be abandoned at any point in time. So a good example is you see your partner texting, they have their back to you and, whatever, they're in their zone and they're texting, and the person who's been abandoned is going to perhaps look at their partner and perceive that their partner is texting another person, the brain will immediately concoct some sort of story that is in favor of the idea that they are being abandoned right now, because they're living up in their head, and from the place of their wounding, their system subconsciously does not want that thing to ever happen again. And so everything that you perceive through that lens is going to be a threat to your survival, because you need to protect against it. That thing can't happen. You need to survive. Now, the biggest irony of them all. Okay, you ready? If you react to that fear as the anxious person with the abandonment wound, you see your partner, you have this thought, this fear. Now you have a huge nervous system response. It's happening again. You are in a triggered moment. You're completely taken over by the fear, by the thing, by the part of you that hurts the most. And if you've not developed a relationship to yourself and started processing it, you're going to believe it immediately, react to it, potentially get mad at your partner, blame, assume that it's true, and penalize them as such. If you do that enough times, depending on the partner and their tolerance, you will push them away. They will leave. The relationship will fail. And what does that do? That becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the way the anxious person with the abandonment wound processes that is, you see, everyone always leaves. I can't trust anybody. Yet, the whole thing the whole time was that they attracted the thing that they feared most, because they didn't recognize that they have the abandonment wound that's driving their behavior subconsciously, that they are projecting it onto their partner, who is reacting to them, and it is sabotaging their relationships, attracting the very pain that they are running away from. That, to me, when I learned about this, my entire brain exploded. It's so crazy. But what this did for me too was it gave me the biggest sense of empowerment ever, because it made me realize that we are the designers of our own life. We just need to wake up to the subconscious processes that are attracting the dynamics. Like, imagine the inverse were true. It's like, oh, I am with people and they always leave. And it really is them that they're always leaving me. Like, boo-hoo, that's so sad. I have no power in that. People just leave me. But that's not the case. You are attracting it into your own life, meaning you have control over it. When you pinpoint the wounds that are governing your behavior, you show up entirely differently and you break the cycle. But that requires you bringing awareness to the wounds, going in, being with them, taking accountability for everything that you have brought into your own life via living through the lens of that wound, and learning how to be there for yourself so that you no longer seek that safety in somebody else, because nobody else can ever give it to you. And that's the pitfall. It's you were a victim at some point in your life because things happened to you that were unfair. That's for sure. But what ends up happening is this wounded part then constantly seeks out other people to be the savior for that part, because let's say it was your parent or caregiver that wasn't able to be there for you. So now you're looking to romantic partners to fill that void. Please save me. Please save me. But when you put that onto the other person, you're now very insecurely attached to yourself and very insecurely attached to that other person, because you need them to survive. That part of you, that's that primal, raw, vulnerable part of you, is clinging to them like, please save me. I need you, you know? And what does that do? I mean, that's going to push people away. It's going to attract the thing that you fear most. So recognizing all of that is the beginning of an entirely new life where you step into the driver's seat instead of life happening to you. Life is happening for you. Everything that is mirrored back at you is merely an opportunity to look inward and see, what part of me is this triggering? What part of me is coming to the surface right now? What does that part of me need? What is that part of me afraid of right now? And so dating goes from being this very rogue, intense experience to actually being a kind of a form of self-study. Like, you can learn everything you need to learn about yourself through the mirror that is your partner. Because that's where all your shit's going to come out, that's for sure. But if you're busy blaming and going into victim mode, you're going to keep perpetuating the same patterns. Yeah. Mind-blowing stuff. Pretty crazy. Okay, let me take a little breather. There's just so much. There's so much to cover. It's nuts. I don't even know where to go from here. I'll be back. Okay, we are back. So, how do we heal from this and break out of this cycle once and for all? I'm sure you're wondering. And I'm going to tell you what helped for me. And I always talk about this in my videos. I always bring it back to this, but somatic therapy changed my life. I had been to a couple talk therapists, mainly with my ex. We went to couples therapy, which is interesting because I don't actually love couples therapy. I'm also a coach focused on attachment styles and self-abandonment and finding your power. So I have dealt with individuals most of my career. And why I feel like that's so much more powerful is that a lot of the times relationships, you're with another person, yes, but that person, like I said, is a mirror through which you are meeting parts of yourself. So using your relationship, being in it, and using it to see parts of yourself, but then taking the accountability for those parts and then going to work on those parts with yourself, I find is really powerful. And especially when both parties are doing it this way, which doesn't always happen, but oftentimes when one person does it, it really does inspire the other person to grow, or you outgrow your partner who's not growing. So I really recommend, like, instead of trying to drag your partner to a couples therapy thing, I challenge you to grow. Focus on you, focus on your path, and your partner's either going to grow to meet you there, or you're going to realize that you've outgrown that person, and that's just the natural flow of the way things go. So yeah, I've done a couple of couples therapy, well, not therapy because I'm not a therapist, but I've done a couples coaching sessions. And yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic. I definitely prefer working with individuals because when one person starts taking accountability for their experience fully, they show up differently in the relationship, taking ownership, learning how to communicate properly in a way that doesn't feel blamey or aggressive. And just by showing up differently yourself, the dynamic itself usually shifts on its own. Instead of making the relationship the focal point or pointing fingers at your partner, you need to change this, you need to change that. Again, super disempowering. You can never, ever change somebody else. And when you are super invested in that other person changing, oftentimes it's from an insecure place as well. It's like, I need you to survive and you need to change the way you are in order to make me feel good because this needs to work because I can't let you go. And this, it's this whole thing that's based in the insecure attachment that you have to yourself ultimately, that stemmed from your life. And that person is just reflecting it back at you. So back to me. I had gone to see a couples therapist with my ex, and a lot of the sessions are about, we're talking about the situation and, what happened here, what happened there. And a lot of the times talk therapy just it brings awareness to the patterns, which is great. It's awesome to understand what's going on. But what you'll find is that no matter how much you like consciously understand it, does that really change the fact that when you are triggered, this immense bodily sensation comes up over you and you're hijacked by this part of you that it's like this other personality almost, and you've reacted and you've basically done the thing all over again? It doesn't change it, no matter how much you understand what's going on. When you're triggered, your nervous system is going to respond as if there's a lion in the room and you need to survive, no matter what. So how do we heal this? It's not going to be through mentally understanding it better, clearly. And that's where somatic therapy comes in, because the somatic therapy is the soma, the body. And that's the place where all of these big feelings are, all of these parts, all of these big feelings, the nervous system response, the subconscious, it's all in the body. But again, when you were little and you went through that experience and you had these big sensations in the body, your subconscious was like, get me the hell out of here. Let's separate, go up to the head. Well, there's a relationship to the body that was severed in order for you to survive, which is miraculous. Like it's so epic if you think about it. But the healing comes from restoring the relationship that was lost. Coming back down to the body and feeling safe in there again on a subconscious level where your system just goes, it's safe to be in my body. Finally, I'm home. And now from that embodied place, you're growing the capacity to be able to be with all of these parts and start feeling them and holding yourself through them without self-abandoning. But that's a whole process. The somatic therapy process is really building a relationship to your body over time, starting off by getting used to what it feels like to be in your body and feel sensations of pleasure. You don't want to just start by jumping into the most traumatic experience you've ever had. Okay, let me feel this big emotion. Whoa, 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 whoa. Does that sound self-loving? Like that actually to me sounds like I need to heal immediately. Let's go into the worst emotion I've ever had. That doesn't feel gentle, patient, kind. It doesn't feel self-loving. Like, is your body ready for that? Are you ready for that? And that's a big part of somatic therapy, is building a relationship to learning what feels good for you, what feels comfortable. What am I ready for? Do I want to go into this today? It's okay for me to say no. Actually, my body says no. It doesn't feel safe going there. Me honoring the no that comes up in my body is building a relationship to my body. A lot of us on the self-healing journey are fighting against our body. Why? Because we're basically shoving information into our brains of how do I heal this modality, that modality. Let me meditate every day and let me eat well and go to the gym and force because I need to be healed. Okay, well, great. What are you communicating to yourself? First of all, I need to be healed, aka I don't like myself right now. And I'm going to force myself into all kinds of these practices in order to get to that place where finally I will be healed and better. Whereas right now, I just hate this. I hate me. And I'm going to push against what feels comfortable and safe to me in order to get there. Okay. Well, what kind of a relationship are you forming to your body? It sounds abusive. It sounds unsafe. You're not creating safety with yourself. So really, it starts there in the simple things of, let me tune in and figure out what it feels like when my body says, yes, I'm down to go for that walk. Or no, I don't want to see that person. And getting really attuned to what those sensations feel like and learning to honor them. That's loving yourself, not forcing yourself into these weird places in order to finally be the thing that you think you need to be in order to be healed and happy, because you're running in the wrong direction. Bringing gentleness to your healing and holding yourself with that gentleness is the healing. That is what allows you to feel safe with you. That is what allows your body to start saying, okay, I'm actually feeling comfortable with myself. I'm going to start showing you some of these things that have been repressed because I feel like you can hold them. And slowly over time, at a pace that is actually right for you, you will be able to widen your capacity to be with all of these things without abandoning yourself. And that is the healing. That changed my life. Ooh, I love this stuff. It's crazy. Like, widening your capacity to be with emotion is a game changer. In the past, I was like in a constant state of survival. If you threw in anything extra, I would just like lose it. I couldn't handle anything extra. I couldn't be there necessarily as a support because I couldn't carry more than what I was already grappling with. There was such a buildup, there's no capacity. And often that's what an avoidant, fearful avoidant will get overwhelmed and just like get out of there because there's no capacity anymore. They're up to here with their own things. So widening your capacity just makes life so much more easeful because you can be with all of the things instead of run from them. But again, it is a process that takes gentleness, love, and time. Guys, wow. Thank you for being here with me. I loved that. It's like liberating to talk about all this stuff. It feels so good. Thank you guys so much for being here. That was an absolute blast. I hope you guys have the most incredible week, and I will be back next week with yet another subject that sets my entire soul on fire. This stuff is so intricate, so interesting. Humans are cool. Thank you guys for being here. You're amazing.